Hey, it's Steve Sparky, Fifer, 1250 AM, The Fan, beautiful Milwaukee, Wisconsin, along with our guy, Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter or X at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Download the Green and Growing podcast, where you download your favorite podcast ad, including your Odyssey app. We live stream this bad boy more times than not on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page, too. Don't forget to tell your friends, your family members, complete strangers about the Potawatomi Sportsbook Pro Hoops post-game show after each and every Bucks game. I'm on the air taking your calls at 414-677-1250. Write that number down, put it into your phone, memorize it. So after every game, you can call and chat with me, good or bad. You bunch of suckers last night all went to bed on me because they were getting blown out. Y'all turned off your TV, said, I'm done. I'm going to sleep. I got to work in the morning. And off the bed you went. And that's okay because a podcast is always available at 1250amthefan.com and on your Odyssey app. Had Larry Harris, the former Bucks GM, on the show. Also heard from Doc Rivers after that game. And we're going to start off talking about that game here on the Green and Growing podcast. Question is simple, Nathan Marzion. What happened against Golden State? And are you concerned that this could happen again in future games going forward? Pick and choose how you'd like to answer that, my friend. Go ahead.
So what happened was they played a team that had just gotten embarrassed, had 2 days rest, was back at home and in a big bounce back spot, finally fully healthy for the first time in a while. And the Bucks are coming in, riding high, but starting now a West Coast trip and coming off 6 wins in a row. So it felt like they're kind of not, I don't think a team's ever necessarily due for a loss, but it was like, okay, like they might have a bad performance coming up here at some point where they just all of a sudden some type of regression hits. And yeah, it all kind of hit. I mean, they had one good stretch in the third quarter that got them back in this game, and they were only down 6 halfway through the third. But the first half, they were down 20 at halftime, and then they end up losing by 35. Basically, the defense definitely was much worse than it had been the previous, 6 games after the All-Star break. The Warriors, especially in that first quarter, were just getting out and running. And, really the first half overall, they were getting out and running. They were hitting three. They helped that they hit almost all their threes. They were 12 of 19 from 3 in the first half. And really were just able to push the pace on the Bucks, and kind of Bucks seemed to be out of position, kind of scrambling a lot on defense, and gave up some easy baskets in that first quarter. And so, yeah, it was just, not their best performance. They just didn't seem to have it. But I thought it wasn't the end of the world. I didn't feel great going into that game because of all those reasons I listed, where I was like, Warriors are kind of in a bounce back spot here. Again, they had 2 days of rest as the Bucks had to travel West Coast. And you'd like to see them play better. You didn't want to see that defense go back to, what it looked like under Griffin, where there was a bunch of defensive breakdowns and stuff. But as long as it doesn't become a continuous thing, I'm not too worried about it. I, again, thought that they were due to have a bad game here and there. I had talked on here about how, things look good, and I think they can keep up a good level of consistency on defense, but there are still going to be bad games. There are still going to be games where they go back to being a little bit like they were with Griffin, because you're not going to go from being consistently the 20th, 25th best defense in the league to, in an instant, you're elite every single game, and every game you're allowing 100 points or less. No, like there's going to be games that teams get hot, or teams are just able to score a lot on you, and your defense doesn't look as good, and they put up 120, 130. Like that's going to happen. You just hope it doesn't happen a lot. And, as far as concern that it happens again, it's going to happen sometimes. I am a little worried about how teams that, push the pace on them and really can get out and run, and, the Bucks seem to be out of sorts a little bit on offense at times, like when their bench came in and stuff, and that caused some easy transition opportunities for the Warriors, and the Bucks weren't great defending that. So those type of teams give me a little bit of trouble, but there's not that many of those teams that they're going to face in the playoffs that I'm super worried about, because usually those are the young teams. Usually those are the West teams more so than the East, which is more of a kind of half court grinded out type of style basketball usually, with teams like Boston, Milwaukee, Cleveland, New York. Like those are not the run and gun type of teams. So it's not overly concerning for me for the playoffs, but it is definitely something I'm trying to keep an eye on, of like, okay, when they face these teams that can get out and run, especially on the road, because it's easier to do that stuff when you're playing at home, how they respond to that. And they didn't respond very well yesterday. Brooks seemed out of position a lot. He had a very poor game on defense. So yeah, just definitely stuff they have to clean up. And I'm hoping that having a couple days now, in California is going to help them for this game on Friday, be a little bit more comfortable, be a little bit more ready. And we'll see if they can bounce back against the Lakers.
Okay, so this is the thing. So last night on the Potawatomi Sportsbook postgame show, I talked about defense just like you. And it was, man, they can't protect the rim. They were going to the rim over and over and over again. It didn't matter. If you had a Golden State jersey on, you were going to get to the rim and nobody was going to touch you. It was driving me nuts watching that. And then I'm watching social media and everybody's blowing up Brook Lopez. He shouldn't be out there. He's killing them. But okay, fine. So let's say Brook Lopez doesn't play against smaller, more athletic teams. Okay, I'll give you that. Then what? Giannis ain't playing every minute of that game. It's not happening. Bobby Portis ain't blocking shots, and Gallinari sure the hell isn't going to be a shot protector, or a rim defender. So from that perspective, you're in the same boat you are with Lopez out there. If Lopez isn't out there at this point, because you have nobody to block that rim. Even though Brook Lopez, I know, is slow. I get it. I understand, right? He's quick enough against Embiid and some of these other guys, but when you face a team like this, yes, he appears very slow. But to not have a single rim protector out there besides Giannis when he's out there, I don't know, man. I don't know if I can get down with that idea.
I just, people seem to kind of take that too far sometimes where it's like, you either have to play Brook all the time or play him none at all. And it's like, no. You can just limit his minutes against those teams and only play him 20 minutes, 15 minutes instead of his usual 30 plus. Like, and that's okay, because that way it's basically just saying, okay, Brook all of a sudden is going to become almost a backup center for us tonight, where Giannis is our main guy. He's going to play his 40 minutes, 38 minutes. And in those other 12, in those other 15, Brook plays maybe a few minutes more than that too. When they do, because that way you do have at least one of those guys out there at all times and you have some rim protection at all times. But it basically just says, okay, we're not going to have Brook out here full time. And I'm fine with that. But yeah, it's not going to be this take Brook out of the game completely. He can't play at all. And Giannis, you're at center for the entire game. You can't play. You can't sit for a minute. No, like it's somewhere in the middle there where you limit his minutes against teams like that and find other answers and go smaller with Giannis at the 5 and try to, switch more and all that stuff. So that's what they would do in situations like that. Again, where you're in matchups where Brook isn't as useful, or just in games where all of a sudden he's kind of getting exposed and you have to do that. Like, again, I'm fine doing that. It's just not something that I want to do full time. And it's not something that they have to do, the entire game, as some people, like you said, kind of right away say, is like they act like he can't play a minute on that court. And it's like, no, he can play a little bit. He can, are they going to still score on him a little bit? Yeah, probably. Is there going to be times where he stops them from scoring? Yeah. Are there going to be, some decent minutes he gives you? Sure. But it's just about limiting those minutes if you have to, and not playing him the usual 30 plus.
Let's talk about a positive with Brook Lopez. And that is, and we only have one play to go off of, but I'm going to hold on to that one play. In fact, I cut the highlight to save it. Brook Lopez, with Giannis having the ball, cuts to the rim, gets post position, gets the ball, and has an easy basket. And we won't see that now probably for another month, probably, before you see it again. And last night, last night, I guess it was a perfect example of that team, the Bucks, not shooting the ball all that well. It would have been another perfect time to let Brook Lopez go to work against an undersized team and let him play with his back to the basket and score easy baskets around the rim. And outside of that one play, which he did on his own, outside of that one play, they didn't do it at all. And this is the same thing we went through. Bud did it some. I'll give Bud credit. So he did have some play designs where they did drop it to Brook in the low block. Now, I personally think that's because Brook Lopez probably asked for it, but none under Adrian Griffin. And now here we are with Doc. I just really hope that if they get into a situation in the playoffs and if they're not shooting well, I hope they at least think of letting Brook work down low in those games where, the jump shot's not falling for the rest of the guys, Nathan.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another thing where, like, he's not completely unplayable against those teams, because it's almost like, okay, you're not going to be as useful defensively. You're probably going to get scored on more. They're quicker, they're smaller, they're, whatever. They're going to go past you a little bit, but we can use you more offensively down low now. Like, just change up how you're using him in those matchups. It doesn't have to be either Brook is, he doesn't always have to fit into two molds of, like, or I guess two instances of, he's either Brook Lopez we're used to blocking shots, hitting threes, and is a rim protector, or he's not playing at all. Like, no. He can he can play a little bit as something else, as a post up, offensive player, get him down low in matchups where the other team is smaller, the other team is, quicker, but you can maybe utilize your size a little bit more down low. And then defensively, you're not going to be as impactful, but we're going to have you more as an offensive guy tonight. Like you can use him in different ways. And yeah, I agree. I want to see them try to do that because, again, it just does not have to be this. Either he's playing 32 minutes at exactly the way we're used to him playing, or he doesn't play at all. Like he can be used in other ways and used for other things than just the usual 3-pointer and defense all the time. And again, I still do think like his minutes should be limited in those matchups. I'm not saying you just play him his usual minutes and live with the results defensively. No, like I get limiting his minutes, but he doesn't have to be taken away completely. You can still find other ways for him to be impactful.
I'll give you the other thing. So doing the post-game show, pretty much talking about the same thing we're talking about here a little bit, right? Talking about lack of defense, talking about Brook Lopez. Fine. So then I get to midway through the show and I'm like, okay, let's hear what Doc has to say. So I play back to Doc Rivers post-game press conference. And Eric Name leads with the defense question. And Doc's like, defense? No, I'm not worried about the defense. I'm worried about the offense. And then he goes on to say that in the first half of that basketball game, they didn't run one offensive set correctly. Not one in 2 quarters of basketball didn't run one offensive set correctly. And I was like, damn, like, aren't you talking to your guys? Like, slow down, run the offense, like, enough. Now, I don't know if he was doing that in timeouts and they just weren't listening or whatever. So then I came home last night, like 3 a.m, whatever time it was when I got home. And I'm like, thinking about it some more. Okay, so who's the guy on the floor that needs to make sure this offense is running right? And to me, I'm not putting it on Giannis. I'm putting it on the point guard. They're the ones initiating the offense more times than not, right? Whether it's Pat Bev or it's Damian Lillard, they're the ones that should be making damn sure that they're running these sets correctly. To me, when we ask, are you concerned it could happen again? Yeah, I kind of am a little bit concerned because that offense was helter-skelter and not exactly what we've seen in the past from this team. And that could lead to doom in a playoff game if they get off course again. So if it's not going to be on Doc, which apparently it's not, then it needs to be on the guys initiating the offense to slow everybody down and get them to run what they're supposed to be running, because Golden State was kind of forcing it a little bit, and they let them kind of dictate what they were doing in the half court.
Yeah, the offense, definitely wasn't its usual self. In the first half, I don't know. In the first half, I thought the defense was way more of the problem. I don't really agree with Doc there. And I know he's the coach, but when he says that, I can think of at least 2 or 3 plays that were run very well. I don't know if it was exactly what they designed, but like right out of the gate, they ran a Damianis pick and roll that scored. That was perfect. And then they had another one later where they ran a Damianis pick and roll. Jay Crowder came over in the dunker spot kind of and got a lob, but missed the layup. But it was like a perfectly executed play where they just missed layup. So like, I don't know if I buy that they didn't run anything correctly. And again, in that first half, I thought the offense was fine. They put up like near 60 points, and then the defense just the Warriors were hitting everything, and the defense looked terrible. So I don't know. I still think the offense will be fine once Chris is back. And it'll still be fine. It's been fine. It's not like it's been terrible or anything, but I think it'll go back to being like consistently elite when Chris is back, because you really see it in the minutes where, I tweeted today, the Bucks outscored the Warriors 40-34 when their starting 5 was on the court and you had Giannis and Dame on the court together. And as soon as a bench guy came in, they were outscored 91-50, because most of those minutes where you took one of Giannis or Dame out, and all of a sudden you only have one guy out there who can really create his own shot, really get his own offense. And, those minutes were just tough to find much success on offense. And those are usually minutes that you're going to have Chris out there too, or you're going to, if Chris is on the bench, you'll have someone else, either Giannis or Dame, on the court. And usually you can have 2 of those guys on the court at once. So it just will help things a ton. Or you go to those bench units where, in the first half they ran an all bench unit, I think, or not all bench, but where it might have had Brook out there with 4 bench guys, or Brook and Beasley with 3 bench guys, and you had neither of Giannis or Dame on the court. And it's like, you're kind of watching this going, man, like they just don't have any offense right now. They have nobody. It's Pat Connaughton, Patrick Beverly, Bobby Portis, who had some offense in that game, but still isn't like a, go-to
Correct.
offensive guy.
Yeah.
Brooke Lopez and Gallinari, maybe. Maybe that was your 5, or probably not Gallinari. It would have been like a guard or something. But you're looking at it going, okay, nobody here can really get their own offense. This is when you usually would have Chris Middleton on the court, and he would be helping that a ton. So I think that seeing some of that, as you say, kind of helter-skelter, disjointed offense at times, it'll be helped a lot when Chris is back, because those minutes will have, and those lineups will have a Chris Middleton in that lineup to just take the pressure off everyone and really just be that, go-to shot creator to make everything look smoother, everything run smoother. And basically having Chris back just gives you almost no minutes ever where there's not, a good shot creator on the court. You always have Dame, Giannis, Chris, one of those guys at least on the court. And so it just makes everything run smoother, and you don't have those stretches where it's like, what are they doing offensively? Like, they don't have anyone to go get a bucket.
Yep, totally agree. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. I'll take a quick time. I'll come back on the other side. Since we're talking about Chris Middleton, I was thinking about this earlier this afternoon about Chris Middleton's contract situation, this year and going forward, and whether or not the Bucks are actually getting good value here in Chris Middleton for the amount of money they're paying him. So we'll talk about that next here on Green and Growing. Download it on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app. Also, check us out streaming on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. Back after this. Hey, it's Steve Sparky, Fifer, 1250 a.m. The Fan, host of the Potawatomi Sportsbook Pro Hoops post-game show on 1250 a.m. The Fan, each and every day after a Bucks basketball game. After the final buzzer, you make the switch to 1250 a.m. The Fan, or you can stream us right there on your Odyssey app, and we'll take your calls. We'll reach your tweets. We'll play some press conferences after the game, maybe have a guest or two after the game as well. A lot of fun after each and every game. Tell your friends, tell your family as well. The question is this, Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter at Nathan Marzion. Do you think the Chris Middleton contract is a good value for the Bucks the next couple of years? Now, I have it pulled up here. I use a spot track. I'm not sure what everybody else is using nowadays. Over the cap, I know is what a lot of the NFL people use. But I use spot track for all my contracts. Chris Middleton, and I'm going by cap hit because that's all that I really care about. Cap hit for Chris Middleton next year is $31.666 million for Chris Middleton. Now, the reason I sorted it this way by cap hit is because it gives you an idea of, is he worth the money based on the players that are around him making similar type of money or cap hit wise. Okay, so he's 42 in the NBA. Is he the 42nd best player in the NBA? I think I feel pretty comfortable saying he's probably in the top 42 players in the NBA when healthy, right? When healthy, that's probably the case. Now let's look at some of the guys around him. In front of him making more. De'Aaron Fox, Jason Tatum, Bam Adebayo, $34.8 million. They're tied for 36th. 39th, Desmond Bane of Memphis, $34 million. DeAndre Ayton, also at that same number at number 40. CJ McCollum at 41, $33.333 million. After Middleton, Julius Randle, $30.3 million. Chris Paul, $30 million. Jeremy Grant, $29.7 million. Jordan Poole, $29.6. Devin Vessel, $29.3. Porzingis, $29.2. Tyler Hero is number 49 at $29 million even. A lot of people get on Chris Middleton. A lot of people get on Chris Middleton. When I read that list, to me, I said, I'm good. I'm fine. I'm comfortable with where he is, with the players that are around him. To me, Nathan Marzion, I'm comfortable with what he's getting paid based on what others in that same contract, atmosphere are getting paid. I feel like he's belongs right where he is.
Yeah, 100%. And, people look at the numbers he makes and say, oh my God, 30 million. And I mean, I was doing this early in the year where right away when he was on his minutes restriction, people are like, we're paying this guy $30 million to be on a minutes restriction, blah, blah. And I'm like, you don't realize that $30 million right now is like 15 million before. Like it's the cap, like and again, I go to the ranks of where do you rank in terms of being paid? Because, if the top guys are getting paid 60, okay, 30 is not that much. Whereas, again, 5 years ago, that was probably 30 million was one of the highest paid guys in the league, or 7 years ago, 5 years, 7 years ago. But now it's like, no, that's not even close to that anymore. And I think people still just look at that number and think he's one of the highest paid players. And like, no, he's not. He is not one of the highest. He's between the 40th, he's going to be for the next 3 years between like the 40th and 50th highest paid player in the league. And yeah, I'm completely comfortable with that because when healthy, he is that, and if not better. And again, all that, like, I don't even care how much he's playing in the regular season because you're not paying him to play in a bunch of regular season games and do a bunch in the regular season. You're paying him to be that guy in the playoffs or down the stretch, So if he comes back healthy in the playoffs, like he did last year, averages, last year in the playoffs, he averaged 25, 6, and 6. I don't expect him to do that as a third option this year. But if he comes back and is averaging his, what he was averaging before getting hurt, which was basically 18, 5, and 5 on nearly 50, 40, 90 shooting splits in the playoffs, well, then, like, of course he's worth the 40th to 50th highest paid player. It's not even close. Like, I'd pay him as the 20th highest paid player if he's going to give me that. Because the other thing people don't understand is that basically every NBA player is overpaid. Besides the guys on their rookie contracts or maybe on their second contract, you pay them a little bit more than you're really willing to give them to keep them around, because that's what the Bucks had to do. It's like, and they honestly, I mean, again, I thought they could have had to pay him more. I mean, he had a $40 million player option for this year and declined it to take 30, 30, 30 around there. And it's like, is he, in a vacuum worth 30 million based on how many games he plays and his injury history and his age? Probably not, but like, you're willing to give him a few extra million. Same with Brook Lopez. He's probably not worth 26, 25 million in a vacuum, but it's either you pay him a little bit more than he's worth or you let him go and you get nothing for him in the Buck situation, And that's everything where I'm like, what are you complaining about to the people that say, why did they sign him? It's like, they didn't have another option. If you lost him, you just lose that money. You don't get to go use that 30 million elsewhere and, just go get to sign another player. No, that's not how it works. They're already over the cap. So there's nothing to really talk about as of right now with it because it's all going to come down to the playoffs. Now, if he doesn't get back or, doesn't play in the playoffs or looks terrible in the playoffs, you can have a discussion of, do they trade him? Do they move him? Do they try to get someone else in here and move him while he's, still got some value? He's still a good player. He's still got a couple years left of good value. You try to trade him. Like, I understand that at that point, but there shouldn't be any discussion about why they signed him or how much they're paying him. Because again, as the 46th highest paid player, and a guy that when he's healthy, he's been averaging 17, 5, and 5, and you didn't get anything for him if you didn't sign him. What's there to argue about? What else? What other choice did they have? What else did you want them to do? So yeah, it's all going to come down to the playoffs in terms of his value. And if it's if it ends up being something that they're really getting a bargain out of, because that's just, I mean, again, that's what you're paying him for. You're not paying him to always play in the regular season. You're just paying him to be a guy that helps you win a championship. And so if he can do that, he's absolutely worth the 40th to 50th highest paid player. And I've never understood the complaints about it when you look at where he's ranked.
You said go back 5 or 7 years. I didn't go back 5 or 7 years. I went back to 2020, 2021 season. Okay. Middleton was making pretty much the exact same money, 33 million. So that was not that long ago, the 2020 season. He was 16th in the NBA. He was making more than Anthony Davis. He was making more than Damian Lillard, making more than Kevin Love, Ben Simmons, and that god-awful contract, making more than Siakam and those guys, making more than the Joker. Just in front of Middleton was Kyrie in the same neighborhood, Tobias Harris, Jimmy Butler, Kawhi Leonard. Kemba Walker was at 34.3. 34.5 million was Mike Conley. He was top 10 in salaries. Middleton was at 33 million at that point. So in literally 3 seasons, you can see how dramatically the NBA has changed. So now next year, you're going to add new contracts right onto this list of contracts with cap hit numbers. He very well could fall down about 50 before this is all said and done. And in my opinion, again, when healthy, and like you said, if he's not healthy in the playoffs, then you obviously can have that conversation of, okay, this is not worth it anymore. He can't stay on the floor. But if healthy and playing the way he is, he's definitely a top 50 player in the NBA. I don't, to me, that's not even a debatable thing. at this moment in time. Let's take a quick timeout, come back on the other side, and we're going to talk about something negative. Okay, I'm just going to be honest. It's not Marquette losing to UConn. I'm not going to torture Marzion with that. But I do want to talk about, as we sit here right now, getting ready for the rest of this West Coast trip, what do you think is going to be the reason that the Bucks don't win a championship if they don't win a championship, right? So as of right now, as you're sitting here right now today, playing Nostradamus of they're not going to win a championship because this is going to happen, and it's going to kill them, and that's why they're going to lose a series. So what is that reason? We'll talk about that. Coming up next here, Green and Growing Podcast, Steve, Sparky, Fifer, Nathan Marzion. Download it on your Odyssey app, or if you download your favorite podcast app. Check us out on the Odyssey Sports YouTube page as well. Back after this. Hey, it's Sparky Fifer, 1250 AM The Fan, along with my guy Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. Follow Nathan Marzion at Nathan Marzion. What will be the reason if the Bucks don't win a championship? If you don't mind, I'll start. It's pretty nice and simple for me. If the Bucks don't win a championship, it means that Damian Lillard probably did not play up to the standards of what everybody thought in the postseason. I really think it's just that, because I believe Giannis is going to play to his standard, right? He's going to go average 30 in a series or 35 or whatever the case may be. If Lillard ends up averaging 20 in a series, that's probably going to be one of the reasons why they lose. He's got to play like Dame Lillard in Portland for them to win. He just does. Can they win a game or two in a series if he scores 20 points? Yes. Right. Middleton might be able to go off and do something. Bobby Portis might be able to have another big night and overcome it. But for a 7-game series, if he's averaging 20, they're in deep trouble. Like that's going to be too much to overcome in my mind. So to me, if they don't win this thing, I think Dame Lillard is going to be the reason why they don't win this thing if he's not playing at a high level for 7 games. Nathan Marzion, what say you?
I do agree. Dame is my number one reason. But I do want to push back a little bit on you saying that he has to play like Portland Dame, because I don't think that's the case. And again, he came to Milwaukee to not have to be Portland Dame all the time. He can, we can win playoff series with him averaging 25.7 assists and being pretty efficient and shooting the 3-ball well. He doesn't have to be putting up 30 plus a game. He doesn't have to be doing that. Now you need some games like that where he, maybe Giannis is off a little bit and Dame's got to pick up the slack, or Chris is off and Dame has to pick up the slack a little bit and go off for 30, 35, maybe 40 points. But he doesn't have to be Portland Dame. Like, he doesn't have to be that alpha scorer all the time, doing everything on offense type of player, because again, that's why he left Portland, is he didn't want to have to do that anymore. So, that's the one thing I want to push back on, but absolutely he is the he's the number one thing where I'm like, if he is looking like, his best self, and we've seen it, more lately, where he's shooting the 3-ball well, he's confident, he's running the offense well, and averaging, again, around 25 to 30, 24 to 30 points, and efficient, then yeah, the Bucks can have a really good chance, because what you're getting from Giannis, and at that point, that duo is going to be really hard to stop. But if he is struggling from the field, going through his, one of his slumps on from the 3-ball, and just isn't that same player, and almost to me, it's more about the efficiency always than the volume. Like, I expect him to usually get 22 to 26 points a game, but it's going to be, okay, is he doing that on, 31% 3-point shooting, or is he doing it on 38% 3-point shooting? Because again, that changes a lot, where if he's efficient, it's going to change things. Even if he's still only putting up 25, if it's an efficient 25, give me that all day. So he is my number one. The two other things I would say is Chris Middleton doesn't get back to his, form that he was at prior to getting hurt, which again, he doesn't need to be averaging 20 plus, but be that guy that they were getting for, consistently before that injury, where he was a 17 to 18 point per game guy, 5 assists, 5 rebounds, and he was shooting really efficiently from the field as well. His mid-range was great. Nearly a 50-40 guy. So if you can get that guy, great. Like, it's going to be, that's perfect. But if he never gets back to that form, or if he looks really bad defensively and just looks like not the same player, or he just doesn't come back, is hurt again, and something happens where he's out, okay, that'll be another reason why they don't win the title. And then the third one would be, the bench guys just don't step up. Pat and Bobby are not good enough to, you know, carry that bench unit, I guess, and give you anything off the bench. And the Bucks are kind of left with starters that are really good and a starting lineup that's really good, but a bench that comes in and just everything falls apart when they come in. If that's the case, like we saw earlier from a large part of the season, before the trade deadline, then it's gonna be hard for them to win a title like that. But if you can get the Bobby and Pat that you've gotten, as of late, I think okay, you'll be okay. And you've got Pat Bev, you've got Jay Crowder to play some defense with that group. But early in the season, it was like the bench came in and the defense sucked. The offense, they didn't give you much. It was just like they couldn't do anything well. So you've got to get some production from at least a couple bench guys, particularly Pat and Bobby, because those are going to be the guys that Doc turns to probably most. And so you've got to get something out of those guys to probably have a good shot to win the title, because like you can't just do it with a starting lineup and nothing else. We've seen that several times this year where, again, example last night, the starting unit outscored the Warriors by 6 points and they lost the game by 35 because as soon as any bench guys came in, they just got destroyed.
Because the truth matters has several comments on the Oxy Sports YouTube page. I'm gonna read a couple of them from Marzion, and then I want to see what you say. Like, I know what I'm gonna say. It says, first of all, Giannis should be the one running the offense. The offense should never run through Damian Lillard, period. This is Giannis's team, and Giannis is a way better player. It's very disrespectful what Doc is doing to Giannis. I don't care what people say. Okay, Nathan. What say you? I mean, he doesn't care what we say, obviously, but he doesn't care what people say. But I think it's a take that I have not seen by anybody else. So I'm curious to see what you think about it.
I mean, no, Giannis is the best player. That doesn't mean the offense needs to run through him all the time. That doesn't mean he needs to be on the ball and handling the ball all the time. So, both things can be true. Giannis can be the best player. This is his team. This is, he's the alpha of this team. But run the show through Dame for the most part. Again, you're still going to get Giannis having quite a few possessions where, okay, they just get it to him right away. He goes to work. But, the primary ball handler, the primary creator should be Dame, and you get Giannis looks off of that. And that's worked very well this year. That's the reason Giannis is having the best season of his career, is because Dame's gravity and Dame's, just ability to run the show has generated a lot for Giannis. And if you're running through Giannis, yeah, Giannis is still going to get his, but Dame probably won't be as good doing that, playing off ball consistently and just doing that all the time. So it's like you're getting good Giannis either way. Whether Giannis is on the ball, bringing it up and running the show, or doing stuff off ball, he's going to get his 30. He's going to be great. He's going to do exactly what he does either way. But in one of those, you're going to get a good Damian Lillard more often than not. And in one of those, you're not going to get a good Damian Lillard more often than not. And it's like, okay, I'm going to pick the option where you're getting Dame going too, and you're, again, nobody should be worried about Giannis. Like, I don't think anyone in this fan base is like, man, like, I don't know if Giannis is playing well enough for them to win a title. No, that's the last thing on our concern list. So, again, if nobody's concerned about Giannis, we should be doing, and everyone agrees that he's going to get his no matter what. We should be doing stuff that's going to make Dame as successful as possible. And he is the most successful when he has the ball in his hands, bringing it up, and is generating for others or for himself off of that. And so, I mean, it's just, again, I don't think many people disagree with me there. I don't think that's some hot take, but yeah, that's just how I feel.
I don't disagree with you. I agree with you on everything that you said. No question about it. And as far as disrespectful, I don't think so. Giannis, by all indications, loves Doc right now. And if I was coaching, I'd never let Giannis bring up the ball. So I'll be on the exact opposite side of what you said, because truth matters. I complained about that in the beginning of the year, the fact that we're letting him initiate offense. I hate when he initiates offense. I hated it last year. I hated it the year before that. I can't stand it. He would never initiate offense if I was the coach of that basketball team. So there you go. He is Nathan Marzion. Follow him on Twitter, Nathan Marzion. Follow me at Sparky Radio. We'll do this again next week. And I will talk to you guys after Bucks Lakers coming up on Friday night on the Potawatomi Sportsbook Pro Hoops postgame show on 1250 a.m. The Fan. Enjoy your night. Bye-bye.